All right, let's see. I'll be raising bees for honey in south central New Mexico, 6,700 feet of elevation, zone B, 7B, mainly mountain terrain pine. Do I need to be concerned with aggressive Africanized bees affecting my bees? Is this still an issue? Yes, it is an issue. And the reason and how the Africanized bees are going to affect your bees is if you're not managing your bees for requeening. If you're not doing swarm control, what happens is if your bees swarm and they leave a virgin queen behind to get bred, she gets bred by droned Africanized bees, bringing that trait back to the hive. When she lays the larva the next round, they have that trait, making them a little more aggressive. If they build and grow, she swarms again. The trait is there from the last round, and it just gets more aggressive as it goes. That's how the infiltration of Africanized bees gets into other people's hives. It's not a bees coming in that are Africanized, it's a breeding trait. So you have to learn about your management skills of splitting, swarming, queening, and stuff like that. That's why if you've ever heard us talk about if your bees are too aggressive, kill the queen, it's because she's laying aggressive bees. And you might have to requeen and do some stuff like that. So you will have to worry about that just a little bit if you're not controlling or doing your beekeeping management. That was, I didn't see who said that. I didn't see where anybody.
That was Billy.
That's Billy. Okay. That's the same wood shop story. I don't know about the wood shop story.
Don't worry about it.
But I got Jacob Billard. It says top windbreak picture. How does the sun hit the hive in the morning? So are you talking about the one, hopefully the one that you saw where I said I really like this setup? Or if you're talking with one with the lattice all the way around it. The other side of the lattice was open facing the house. What you were seeing was street side. So people just saw that as maybe as a picnic area. But the other side was open facing south where the house was. Remember, you just need open light to hit the front of the beehive. We talk about putting a beehive inside of a storage shed. This hive is never going to see light. But the tube in front of the beehive that goes right out to the opening is to the south. So as the sun hits the building, the bees are going to see the light through the tube as they go out and they see it. Or the tube itself will heat up and the bees will start going out. Now remember, it's about the sunlight for heat. If your bees are in a storage shed, they're going to be warm. So you have to kind of watch and fluctuate that, because if the bees are warm and they start flying out and it's 30 degrees outside, they fly out and they go like this and they drop and they die because they freeze. Right? So you have to learn to control and fluctuate your heat by even opening up the doors in your shed or barn. There's a beehive called Slovak beehives. Sloven AZ beehives are the United States version. And they're made that when you walk into the building, you open up the back of the beehive like a door and you slide the rails, the frames are on rails and they slide out towards you instead of lifting them. And that's a Slovak hive. Those are inside of a building shed. But they also talk about temperature control in those. So it's one of those things you're looking at the controlling of the heat as well as sun temperature. Sun is basically to keep the warmth going. That's why I said you want shade in the afternoon. You want the temperatures to start dropping or the bees will be outside the whole time because it's too hot in that hive. So that's some temperature control methods that you'll need.
And that question came from Jacob. Thank you, Jacob.
Billy Van Curren, I think is what we've got here. It says, how greatly does the feed source for the bees affect the taste of the honey? I see clover, honey, etc. I will be utilizing mountain meadows intently unless the rest of my own property is capable of feeding the bees. A lot. I just had a friend bring me some honey that was in some of these really cool packets. I'm even looking at their biodegradable tasting packet. I thought they were really cool. We tasted the honey. I didn't like the honey. One of the most expensive honeys, I'm doing a mead course for actually the American Mead Makers Association, and I'm showing one of the most expensive meads I make. And it's made with honey from New Zealand. The honey cost I think we totaled it all up at about $32 a pound. We talk about making a 1 gallon batch of mead with 3 pounds of honey. That's $90 just in honey. And the honey has high amounts of peroxide, anaerobics, biotics, and stuff in it. It's super awesome honey for medical use. Very bitter in taste. So it's something that you could add for your tea for the medical value, but I don't know if I'd be putting it on my bananas mixed with almonds. It's going to have a little bit more of a bitter taste. Some people love avocado honey. Some people love clover honey. Some people love orange blossom honey. Every plant has its own nectar and its own taste. So lavender has its own taste. Macadamia nut honey has its own taste. It's going to change not only the flavor, but the color, the aroma. So if you have wildflowers growing, you're going to get a vast variety in the honey as you tone it down. Most people, when they get clover honey, it's only been in a clover field. So it's going to only have the sweet taste of clover. Same thing with orange blossom or anything else, almond, apple, anything like that. But you know, I think if you're in the mountain area, man, I think you're gonna enjoy the honey. I personally like blended honey. Not only are you getting all the pollens from all the different stuff for your allergies, I think so. You know, wildflower honey is some of the best honey out there. So, and remember, you're talking about feeding your bees. You only feed your bees when there's no nectar flow, right? So from October all the way until Mother's Day, there's no nectar flow where I'm at. So they're either eating their residual honey storage, we're feeding them liquid in October, they're going for fondant between January and February, and in March, April, we're getting them a little more liquid feed because soon after, and when May, when the flowers and dandelions come, I pull that feed away from them because I want those girls to go to work, and I want them to make a good nectar flow. So the nectar flow, you don't want to feed your bees during nectar flow.
What, and is the flavor profile going to change when you turn it into a mead or different other products?
Sometimes it does. If it depends on what adjuncts you're adding to your meads. I'm actually right now, if you take my 52 meads in a year course on YouTube, we do a mead every month. I think January we did clover. February we're doing orange blossom. March we'll be doing apple. We'll have avocado. We'll have a tapalito tree. We're going to be doing, and I've got 12 different honeys. We're going to make them all the same so you can see when the meads turn out, the different colors in meads, the different smells in the mead, and the different flavors from the different honey. So we're actually doing that test to show you on that station about mead making with the different honeys, what they turn out to be. Some people, I think if you saw Frank's course, he talked about clover honey and orange blossom be one of his go-to. But I think Brothers Drake's and the gentleman from Montana, from Hidden Valley, I think their go-to mead actually is avocado. So I think it's just what you like and your personal flavor when it comes to mead making.
And I was just thinking, you might not like the flavor as itself, but once it's converted into a mead, you might like the flavor. Yeah, totally. And it depends on what you do with adjuncts too, to enhance some of those flavors. If you're doing Joe's Ancient Orange Mead, and you're using orange blossom, and you do the same mixture using clover, you might like one or the other more. You know, that's your own personal taste. Yeah. So yeah, that's a pretty good question about if the feed and the honey. So yeah, it says anonymous viewer, what do you recommend sugar for making feed? Organic or non-organic sugar? I think if you look at some of my stuff, I talk about using a BT more than I talk about using straight sugar contents. That Spikenard Farms is a biodynamic farm and bee refuge. And Gunther Hawk has a BT recipe where he's mixing honey and herbs and spices. Some of the herbs are like tarragon and stuff for a rejuvenative memory, because when the bees fly, they fly through the brush and stuff, they get their heads knocked, sand hits them, brain damage. I'm big on that. I've had some brain damage myself. So
using those things for recognitive memory are good. So your sugar goes with sugar. I'm using a couple different sugar blends, and I'm one of the few guys that probably tell you a little pinch of molasses is okay because of the ground mineral that comes up with it. I wouldn't feed a lot of it to your bees because it gives them dysentery. I think if you're feeding plain corn sugar to the bees, it's bad. But I'm also a believer that it's okay to have a fine cigar every once in a while. If you enjoy that, you know, a little bit of nicotine might be good for you. I believe in that. A little bit of alcohol is okay. I think it's about blending it down. So if you're asking about what I think about sugars, I think if you're getting honey, saving some of your honey and you're using it back to feed your bees, diluting it down with some water, adding some herbs and spices to it from the site Spikenard Farms, right? You can even Google that, Spikenard BT, and the recipe will come right up to show you how to make it. So I think some of those are way better, but non-GMO, GMO, sugar additives, let's face it, bee nectar is the best. Nonosphere goes with the sugar question. How do you feel about Pro Health feed additives sold from Man Lake? I'm a big fan of Man Lake. I know that a lot of people are using Pro Health bee feed additive. I've even used it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Sometimes scientific stuff looking on how to aid the bees is important. Pro Health even has some additives to help with dysentery, nosema, and stuff like that to build strength for the bees. So I think that you're the beekeeper. If you want to try it, try it. If you like it and you want to use it, use it. If you want to look way into it, look what the additives are, look at some testing stuff, I'm sure you can call Man Lake. I want to let you know Man Lake is employee owned and owned by beekeepers. So that's something else to think about, right? That if you want to talk to them, you're going to talk to a beekeeper. And they'll tell you exactly what's in it, what they think they make it there, and if they're using it. So that's another route to think about that. I've used it. I don't see anything wrong with it. But I'm also not the guy that's trucking in a 55-gallon of corn syrup to feed the bees either.
Yeah, is that something you would just feed if there's if you're having problems with the hive, like some kind of health issue?
Like I said in the PowerPoint presentation, Josiah, that I only feed the bees two ways. One is if the hive's sick or if there's no nectar flow. Yeah. Other than that, my bees should be working, right? No one's taxing them, so they're working. They should be out working anyway. So, you know, if you want to use some Pro Health feed, you know, I don't see anything wrong with it, especially if you're starting off a new package or a new nook and you want them to really start to build, right? Instead of going out and dumping a whole bunch of corn sugar in there, you want to mix some of that in there with some of your sugar and honey and water. And I don't think there's anything too wrong with it.
And is that, why does that like give them some kind, is it like steroids for bees?
I think you're going to get them some inoculation. Right, there's a difference between inoculation and treatment. Like I said, I treat my bees, but I'm not pumping Epistan in there. I'm not using terramycin. I don't use heavy amounts of oleic acid, but I am using bee feed tea, right, to rejuvenate and to do stuff like that. That's a treatment. Mm-hmm. I am grinding up rhubarb leaves for the oleic acid. That's a treatment. Right, that helps prevent mites from coming in and hive beetles. I am modifying my beehives for smaller inlets and less accumulation. That's a form of treatment. I'm treating an area where the bees have less access to get into. Treatment and inoculation are different. I want people to understand that too. You have to treat your bees just like you have to feed your bees. Right? If you're just going to let your bees go wild and they don't make it, that's because you didn't care. Or if they over flourish and they're doing stuff, you don't know how many times they've swarmed. So I mean, that's beekeeping. Yeah. Just in general. I mean, so you know, you can do as much as you want. If you want to do heavy inoculation and you want to feed super bee health to them, it's your beehive. It's not me. You're the beekeeper, man. Jacob Nelson, if you have multiple rows of hive, how much space front to back would you recommend spacing your hive? 5 foot. You should have a 5-foot walkway. If you have a beehive here and a beehive here, 5 foot behind them, and in between them is the next beehive. That way the bees fly out between the hives and up. If you have them right in front of each other, they come up into the backs of those beehives where you're working, right? So kind of alternate them in between and give yourself about 5 foot, because they come out about 3 to 5 foot before they come up to do their orientation flight. They just don't go off the pads and up. They come out and then they come up. So about 5 foot. Like give yourself about 5 foot all the way around. We say, you know, working side to side, give yourself 2 to 3 feet. Like give yourself about 5 foot before the next row.
And then from the bottom up, 27 inches or 18 inches? 18 to 22?
About 18 to 22 inches off the ground. That's about, if you look at 18 inches, you know, that's about a foot and a half. 18 inches is a little bit taller than my arm length up. If you would go off the ground, right, you set your box, that's about your knee level, right? That's so that if you grab, you're not bending all the way down to get them. That's about knee level. Your second brood box would be about thigh level. Your queen excluder, if you're using one, and then your honey boxes are about here where you could grab them. Those are going to be your heaviest formats, right? One of those honey boxes. So you want those where you can grab them without bending over and hurting your back. So 18 to 22 inches about, roughly. I mean, a little higher. I mean, if you want to put them up in the air, that's up to you, man. And, you know, if you want to set them right on the ground, like I said, you're the beekeeper. But we try to keep all ours about 18 inches off the ground. Mike Holt, is the shade structure also to keep temps down on the hive? What is the max temp for the beehive? The bees will keep the inner core of that beehive at 98 degrees. Bees can live up to temperatures of 115 before it gets too hot. At 115 degrees, it kills mites, it kills mice, it kills other pests. So sometimes the bees will jump on things, increasing that temperature to kill things. So they can live up to 115 degrees. The ultimate temperature to keep everything around that beehive is about 70 degrees. 80 degrees is about what at the max. The sunshade does help out a lot to reduce those temperatures. If you're in Texas, Florida and stuff, people are even putting tarps and stuff over their beehives to reduce that, to try to accumulate the loss of heat. Because if you get those beehives too hot, those bees will be outside that beehive all over, not inside. If they're outside trying to stay cool, they're not working. They're outside. If they're inside, they're able to clean, they're able to feed the queen, they're able to guard the hive. But if they're all on the outside, they're not doing that stuff. So the object is to keep as much of the bees out in the work field during the day and most of the bees in the hive at night. Because even at night, if you have skunks or the predators, skunks will take their tail and whip it around and the bees will get caught in it. Then the skunks lay on their back and just pick the bees out of their tail and eat them. They'll decimate a hive in a week once they find out a food source is there. So you want the bees inside the beehive. So yes, the shade structure is also to keep the temperatures down. And like I said, the max temperature on a beehive, you know, I think 80 degrees is good, because they're going to try to keep that beehive on the inside about 98 to keep the evaporation for the honey as they're fanning, and to keep it so they can eat, because as the liquid form of the nectar is better for them to eat. When it crystallizes, they're using harder sugar. It takes a long time to eat it and digest it. Sandra Johnson. It says, thank you for this. Preview took a course at local, and I've learned so much. I'm always learning. I have 2 master beekeeping certificates, one from Ethiopia and one from Indonesia. And I still learn a lot. And the one from Indonesia was like super awesome. The one from Uganda, I think, was the best course I ever took, because they even taught you how to build your own smokers. So I learned about how bellows work, airflow, pumice, how to clean them. I learn a lot from beekeeping. I still, I teach at the University of Wyoming's Bee College, and I learn from other beekeepers that come all the time, that come from Turkey, China, Canada, Austria. They come to teach. You're never going to stop learning about beekeeping. There's so much to learn from the aspect of like how to downsize your bees from 5.7 millimeter down to 4.9 millimeter to get them back. That's a process of building your own comb and frame material. So, I mean, there's a vast variety of learning experience in there all by itself. I don't ever stop learning. I'm glad that you like the difference in courses. We offer a lot of courses. Prometheus is going to have some really good stuff coming out. Two things in that course that are going to be really extravagant is the swarm trap. If you've seen it on my YouTube site, I have had beekeepers in the business that are 3rd and 4th generation that have said that is the most, never seen that before, and they're going to this. That it's the most antiquated thing to catch swarms that they've ever seen, and they've been beekeeping 4th, 5th generation, never seen it. We're always learning as beekeepers. We're learning about new feeding techniques, new inoculation styles. We're moving into more dynamic beekeeping hives. We're learning about record keeping more, crop variances. Like I said, I learn just as much as anybody else does. I might know a lot about bees, but I'm always learning myself.
And if you guys want, you can, if learn.prometheus.com, we have the Our Bees for Me course, which is only $49. It's an introduction course. Now, you might already know that bees are for me, what have you, but if you are in that course, if you're registered for that course, when the new course comes out, you'll be getting a discount coupon to access the new course. So just a heads up if you're interested in.
Yeah, so if you've already taken the first course, don't think that's it. Oh, they just talked about I watched him get stung by a bee. I just wanted you to know that you are going to get stung. You need to know your laws, and you need to learn to talk bee. You know, so that was just to get you started and adequate. I even give a course that a guy came and took, and I show, I think it's 7 different types of beehives from around the world, from Turkey to new invented ones that we're doing here in the United States. And he's like, well, which one do you use? I didn't know there were so many. That's just introduction. It's just to get you a taste of everything from the products they make. I mean, I produce 7 products just at off my apiaries, from wax, propolis, honey, bee pollen, selling packaged bees, doing classes. I mean, that's 6 right there that are just from taking those kind of courses. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more that are coming out, and you're going to see a lot of different things when it comes to beekeeping.
Oh yeah, we have a budgeting course coming out. We have a fondant cake making course coming out, a harvesting honey course coming out, a winterizing course coming out. There's a lot coming out, and there's going to be more after that. Yeah,
I keep on throwing out as much as I can in between the classes that I'm going out to teach. So working with Josiah's getting ready to take a tour, so I don't know if I'll be able to catch up with him here in a while. But yeah, going with the lady, you're always going to learn a lot more, and you're going to do a lot. So be antiquated to jump right in there.
I purposely put Cheyenne, Wyoming in the tour so I could stop and film at the next piece of the course.
My mom will be happy. Caroline Lloyd. We have access. We live across the street from a giant commercial greenhouse that grows flowers for Walmart. When the sun is out, the tops off the greenhouse opens up. Would this be a good feed source? Yeah, I down by the city parks, I have a botanical garden. My bees are probably in there. I was in Ohio working with looking at some guys doing some stuff there with the Ohio Get Shit Done crew there. Rob Kaiser has a big greenhouse, and he opens both ends of it, and during the season he just plants the whole bottom of that with buckwheat, and his bees are in that greenhouse working. He doesn't even have the bees in the greenhouse. They're coming across the field over, and that greenhouse is flooded with bees when he's doing buckwheat. So yeah, if those doors are open, those bees are going to find it. They're going to smell that. Bees smell fear like sharks smell blood and water. Bees are going to smell that nectar flow and those flowers, and they're going to go right in there. The one thing is that hopefully the doors don't close before the sun goes down, because you remember, bees are union workers. They'll get caught in that beehive, and they won't be back to come until the next day, until that opens up again. So yeah, that's going to be a bee source for you. Totally. Stacy, sorry, I'm bad with the name Schmid. Hopefully I said that right. Stacy Schmid. If I don't pronounce your name right, I'm sorry. It's because I'm illiterate. We have expanded prairie of 6,300 in elevation in Trona, Wyoming. We have a lot of wildflowers some years, the plant sunflowers, etc. How will we determine if there's enough food for the bees? During drought years, shut under, we expect to feed a bit more. Thanks, Mark and Stacy. You're going to have to learn about weighing your beehive. I know that's a thing that we teach. You're going to have to learn to weigh the beehive. The beehive needs to weigh about 130 pounds before the winter months. Now, if you're taking the course that we talk about when weighing your beehive, you should be weighing your beehive every 9 to 11 days when you're going out to do your inspection. A great weighing device is a luggage weigher. Just hook your strap around it that holds the beehive all tight, your ratchet strap. Hook your luggage carrier on it, pull it up, take the reading. If it reads 100 pounds today and tomorrow it reads 80, that means there was no nectar flow. There's only two things that have happened. Bees are dying, and then they're losing the weight of the beehive, or they're eating the food source inside the beehive, meaning they need to be fed. So weighing the beehive can tell you basically if your honey flows are going, what they're doing. If it's 100 pounds today, you come back 9 to 11 days later, it's 120 pounds, they had a nectar flow. They're filling up stuff, that's good. Right, if you come back and it starts to drop, probably eating the nectar flow, that means they're what, and that's part of your record keeping. As you fill out your chart, every 9 to 11 days when you're checking it, you're gonna see your charts go like this. If it drops like this, no nectar flow. I should have went out there and I should have fed those bees. That way they're not eating what they're making. Those are systems of Darth, right? You can have Darth during the week, during the month, during parts of the year. So, you know, if you're weighing your beehive in the wintertime, people are like, how do you check your bees in the wintertime? Weigh them, right? Take a temperature check. Use the thermal gun. See what the heat source is inside. See what they're weighing. If they're starting to drop weight, you know, if you're using our type of quilting box with feeding tubes, drop some fondant in there. Wrap that beehive up. Put some heat lamps on it. Learn how to build some the easy bake oven method like we're using, or the water treatment method. Get those beehives warm so they'll eat, right? Those are some, you just got to weigh them and kind of fluctuate and build your chart to see when you're going to have Darth. And then you're going to learn, these are the times I feed. These are the time nectar flows hard. That way when nectar flow starts really coming, you're accommodating and making more honey flow. So those are some things to think about.
Yeah, you mentioned record keeping. Can you talk about the book and what kind of information goes into that book? Why we have a book?
Yeah, I recommend a lot of books for you to read, but my program is based on you building your own book. Your book starts off that you find your laws. You put your laws in there. Now you know your laws of your area. We talk about your history. It goes right in there, right by those laws. You talk about when you got stung, what your reactions were, what the doctor said, what your allergy test said. You go through, and as you're starting to build a book, as you go through, you're going to start inserting sheets. And these sheets are going to be talking about, when did I feed? What did I feed? And the result. What was the flight pattern of the bees looking like? What did the pollen look like? What did the hive weigh? Was the sun orientation good? Was it cloudy that day? Was it raining? When I requeened, how did the requeening go? So I think that comes up with a whole bunch of different stuff. Record keeping is you building your book, and your book comes out with the practice that you're going to use, what it looks like every 9 to 11 days, and then basically some go-to stuff like my recipes that I'm using for fondant, what I'm using for grease patties, what I'm using for mite control, right? Because then I'm looking through, I've learned to change even my future by keeping record keeping. Every month in January, I was getting a speeding ticket. If I accommodate and I start writing that down, that, man, you know, between December and February, man, you're going to get a speeding ticket. If I start really watching my speed, wearing my safety belt, watching signs, for some reason, I started increasing in profit, because that profit wasn't going to pay for a ticket anymore. I was making money. So I was changing my future financially by making a record that, oh, my diary, it says, don't speed this week, man. You get busted every time this month. I changed my future. I'm changing my dynamics and stuff. So building your own record book, you're going to see nectar flows, when I need to feed, what was the best feed that I used this year for that? Where the beehive's weighing? Well, how come they're weighing more? Oh, the season changed a little bit. We had more moisture. I haven't seen these type of flowers before. I took my honey to a honey analysis facility from the Honey Board Council. I got on their website. I said, a honey analysis place near me. I took my honey. I found out that this year, man, I was getting mass amounts of sunflower. I haven't seen sunflower. I wonder where they're getting it from, right? These records and stuff, if you're keeping them, makes it so that your beekeeping skills become so uniform. It's almost like doing martial arts. I know every day of February, around February 15th, I got to drop fondant. It's a natural recourse for me. I just naturally know to make it, to do it. I know by Mother's Day I need to get my swarm traps out, because if the queen's laying, I'm going to get free swarms, right? This is part of your record keeping and skills that you build this book, and you're going to be able to really, really get it going. So yeah, I think that record keeping is extremely important. It's going to tell you when you lost your bees last year. Last year I had a 5% loss. This year I'm down to 3%. I'm doing a lot better, right? What did I change? What am I doing that's better, that's making this happen? Record keeping is very big. We'll move on here to Steve M. with the Hive stand. In cold climate Michigan, do you need to attach some sort of windbreak to the stand or frame to insulate it? Okay, so if you're talking underneath the stand, you can slide hay bales underneath it. Hay bales are really big to put on the backs of your beehives and on the side for windbreaks. Good insulation. Put a tarp over the top of it. Let the snow get onto it. This is called earth barrier. In Alaska and some places, even here in Wyoming and Montana, beekeepers dig a ditch, put the beehives in the ditch, cover it with a tarp, put the dirt back over it. Ground insulation, leaving the front sun exposed so the bees on warm days can go out and poop and drink water and forage if there's anything available, but they're insulated well and down. In Michigan, you've got the hawk, the cold water air that comes across and stuff that, you know, insulation is very big. Like I said, Josiah said, we have a course that's coming out where we talk about how you wrap your beehives for insulation, making like tree bark, right? So that way you have layers to keep the air pockets warm with the sun. I think that you need to learn about insulation techniques. If you want to move them out of off the stands and move them into a building, more power to you. Right? You just got to make sure that you're being able to feed them and water them. On good warm days inside a barn or something, there's going to be bee poop everywhere, right? Because they're going to come out on a warm day and defecate and clean the hive, man. So there are many different methods on doing cold weathering. I just think that, you know, one good thing is that's what we talk about history and finding clubs and people around you. It's what's working for them in your area and what have they been doing over the last 20 to 40 years that's been doing good for them. So in Michigan, yeah, if you want to put something underneath it, wrap hay bales around it, cover them up. I think you'll do really good. But also look around, call your Department of Agriculture. Ask them, hey, I'm a new beekeeper. Who's one of the biggest beekeepers within so many miles of me that I could talk to about winterization? Believe it or not, a lot of beekeepers are willing to reach out and help out other beekeepers because we're losing bees dramatically.
How do you deal with pests? So I imagine having hay bales underneath the hive may bring in mice, or also there's ant issues, and how you deal with those.
There's organic methods to deal with ants and stuff. That's cinnamon. You can use ground up cinnamon and place it all over. Pepper, black pepper works with ants. Mice are going to bury in the hay bales. You put them on the side, you put them underneath, they're going to bury underneath them. And if they have any way to jump up to get into your beehives, if you have any opening that's big enough for them to slip in, they're going to slip right in. They're going to chew across, eating the comb and wax and whatever there's along in there. When it comes to pest management, I'm not a big fan of the big open doorway. Langstroth hive, which is the most common hive, top bar hives, there's always that big opening. And I've never seen a tree out in the wild. I've never seen a home that bees have infested that has an opening this long. There's a hole. And it's for guard bees, it's for temperature control, airflow, and when mites and hive beetles and stuff hit that, if you notice there's not a platform for the bees to land on to walk in, they land and they crawl to the bee holes. And I think that if you close those off and you drill half-inch holes in the middle of your brood boxes, when stuff hits that, they fall to the ground and they don't get in. If there's nothing for them to climb up and to get into those holes, you eliminate mice, you eliminate ants, you eliminate hive beetle, you eliminate mites. All the small pests seem to hit the hive and fall down when you do those. So that that's a type of pest management that you're doing. When you get bigger, such as snakes, skunks, fox, something that's bigger, you must get those hives off the ground. Anything that has to climb up, you can put carpet tacking on the sides of your beehives or on the landing pads. So when the animals start to grab, to scratch or something, cuts up their paws, they won't be back. That's too much of a hassle for them to try to get anything. It alleviates it. When we talked about buckets or tin cups and stuff full of used motor oil, don't use vegetable oil. Everybody wants to, oh, I use vegetable oil. It'll bring other bugs, man. Vegetable oil will attract other bugs. We use motor oil won't. Right? As long as you have a cover over it a little bit where the rain will hit it and won't overflow the oil, you'll do just fine. Right? You don't have to fill the whole bucket full of oil. Just some at the bottom, so when the ants crawl in it, the mice crawl in it, or if the snakes fall in it, they can't get out. They'll drown in the motor oil. Bigger animals, you want them off the ground, carpet stripping. Bears, 2 layers of fencing. 5 foot away, you do a barbed wire fence, and then a foot away from it to 2 foot away from it, you do a double rail of electric fence. Best thing is to tie 2 feet away on the top part of that barbed wire fence, bacon, or tie some bacon on the electric fence itself. Bears will bite into that, leaves a lasting impression, right? It drives the bears away. Anything that roves through cattle, deer, anything like that, you want to put a perimeter fence. If you put a perimeter fence, I'd put chicken wire, barbed wire on the top, and put snow fence around the bottom. That way it kind of blocks everything before it gets into there, and then something on the top that nothing's going to climb or jump over it. All right, barbed wire will keep the cattle and other things away, and then put your electric fence away from it, leaving bears and other objects not even get near it. That's part of your safety issues too.
All right, guys, we got one more question up there right now. We still have some time if you have some more questions for Mike. If not, we'll wrap it up after Jacob's question.
Jacob Nilsson, it says, so I had a tough year with hive beetles. Beyond better management, I'm considering running chickens under the hive, hoping they'll help with interrupting the larva cycle as they scratch and dig. Good idea or bird's brain idea? Nothing's ever a bad idea to try it. I'd give it a shot, man. Like I said, I do not know everything. I do know people that run chickens underneath their beehives. It picks up all the dead bees that fall, and the chickens eat the dead bees. But I've not seen, I've never heard of chickens doing a beetle control. All I can say is try it. One good thing that works with beetle control is oil traps. Getting a oil trap board that has slots, filling with oil. As the beetles fall, they can't get back up, and they're trapped in the oil traps that are in the bottom part of the hive. There's beetle traps on the top, same thing. They get in the little oil traps, and you pull them out. Putting the holes in the hive and not having the big barrier, because when the beetles hit it and stuff, they're not able to get in to lay larvae and stuff like that. That's a better way. Anything that flies, good thing to do at night. Put a little spotlight on a soda bottle. Any insects attracted to light, they fall in the soda bottle. You alleviate some of that stuff flying at night, such as hive moth, hive beetle, and stuff like that fly. So try chickens. Try chickens. Let me know. Said, there's no dumb question, and there's only experimentation, man. I've never heard anybody using chickens. You might be the first. Might solve a new permaculture method of solving hive beetle, man.
Yeah, and finally, a good thing to use your used motor oil for
is putting in. Well, they make a beetle trap oil. Yeah, he just wrote back, says, I've used beetle traps with oil, but also tried Dominicus earth, and it seems to work just as well as the oil and cleaner.
yeah,
Dominicus earth works good, right? You just want to make sure that you're not throwing it directly on your bees. If you're putting it in locations where the beetles and stuff get to it, totally. Right? If you're putting it around on your ground to control ants and stuff to get them off your plants, it's not going to get, as long as it's not in the nectar flow where the bees are flying, you're not throwing Dominicus earth right on your bees. Perfectly cool, Jake. That's I've heard that works really good as well, and that's a more natural method, right? So that's a good solve. Good solve. Billy Van Curren. Okay, how many bees are in a single hive, and what is the indicator for splitting a hive? Okay, when you get to a double brood box and the hive weight is around 120 to 130 pounds, and you're going through an inspection and you see queen cups, split the hive. If you have a single brood box where the majority of the 5 frames in the center are filled with brood, split the hive. Anytime that you can pull brood out and make your own queens, you can split the hive, eliminating swarming. And anytime you see queen cups coming about, you should split the hive because it's overpopulated. Those are 2 of the basic techniques that I can tell you about. Is you can split your hive 2 to 3 times a year if you're not looking for honey flow. Right? As long as there's brood for you to pull and you can make a queen, you're splitting a hive. There are some guys that do not care about honey flow and only split hives for sale. A beehive, you can sell $150. A Nook can sell anywhere from $175 to $225 depending on how good your bees are. So some people are just splitting their hives all the time because they make more money that way than they do honey flow. They're not worried about honey spinning equipment. They're not worried about brood boxes, differentiating honey boxes. They don't have to get a lot of equipment for it. They're just constantly going through. I might as well just build some nukes and split this hive. Yeah, mostly queen cupping. If you have lots of frames of brood where you can pull them, because remember when that brood hatches, the queen lays anywhere from 1,500, 1,500 bees a day, right? So 2 frames of full brood is 3 pounds of bees. Once you remember that. When you're looking at a Nook box, it usually has 2 frames of brood, has a frame of nectar, and a frame of pollen, and has a food frame. Those are 4 frames. A 5-frame Nook is the queen variance frame, either using the Miller method, a queening split, or something. So a 5-frame Nook, 2 of those frames are brood. That's usually 3 pounds of bees.
And for those that don't know what a queen cup is, could you explain that?
Queen cup is pencil eraser. If you can stick a pencil eraser inside a cup, that's a queen cup. It's different than a drone cup. Drone cups are usually down at the bottom unless you have a worker bee that has taken the queen's role. Then she's only going to lay drones. It doesn't matter what it is. But most of the time, they're a bigger comb cut at the bottom. When you buy foundation or you're using inlaid permo or pergo board, that's all worker bee comb. You can buy a bigger board, which is green, which is a drone board, or underneath the frames, they'll start building comb to make drones. Drones are needed for breeding, so don't count them out. So you'll see these different combs in different sizes, but if you see your flat comb and then there's a cup on the side of it where they've started making a cup and they'll start to hook down, they're getting ready to make queens. There's probably a larva already in there that they've already started making. As it starts to grow, they'll make a peanut that'll hang down the side, and that's going to be a queen. They're going to put 4 or 5, maybe even 20 in a hive of these queens. A swarm might leave, and another queen might leave with a smaller swarm. You might even get 2 or 3 what we call softball swarms after a big beach ball leaves, leaving no bees in your beehive. So as soon as you start seeing these little cups, I'd look up queen cups, Miller method of queening, do little splitting. I would look up what they call the hole punch method. Those are some things to kind of look up to about queening and what you're looking for and how to queen.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Michael. Okay, we got one more question.
What's my favorite sandwich? Man, I'm a big fan of Jimmy John's. So I think any sandwich is a good sandwich. I'm kind of like Paul Wheaton. I love pie. So I'm a big pie fan.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. For more information, abfriendlycompany.com. Tons of information there. Permaethos.com. Learn.permaethos is our learning center where we have the online courses. You can find our Bees for Me course there right now, and we have future courses coming out shortly, more with Michael Jordan. You
Hit me up on Facebook. Facebook is the biggest mass media site there is. You can get AB Friendly Company on Facebook or my personal Facebook page. They're open. I'm one of the few people that has nothing really to hide. I know what my past was like. I wasn't a good guy. I give out information for free to make it up. You know, as if you've ever heard me talk, you know, you should help your fellow man. So you can hit me up anytime. I'll get back to you as best I can.
That's what I was just going to say. Make sure to hit up Michael on Facebook. He's always willing to answer questions. He's great answering questions on there. Also, all of our PTV presentations are on YouTube now. So you can head over to YouTube /PermaEthos and see those there. Thanks again for being with us, Mike. It's always a pleasure.
Remember, buy your honey from a beekeeper you respect. Buy it from a cottage industry, because that's where I even started. Help your fellow man, because one day you're going to need that help too.
Awesome. Great advice. All right, guys. Thank you again. We'll see you next week, week after next, for the next PTV presentation. Bye, guys. Bye, Mike.